Good morning. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you to my guests. So I have Victoria Beaty, and she's amazing, and she's gracious enough to have coffee with me as I sit in my son's room. I'm sure some of you are excited to see a different backdrop because I'm not fancy enough to put on a fancy Zoom backdrop. So she is executive director of Growing Places Indy, which some of you might know they put on the winter market, which is one of my favorite markets. She is co-founder of Be Well Indy. And I love, Victoria, how you described this. You said the Indy Star of Wellness, the people and places impacting wellness in Indy. And I think that is amazing. And I love the way that you put that. It's so good. I wanted to read it exact. And so we met through Lauren Day, who is a total treasure to Indy. She volunteers at the winter market, and just thought that we should meet as two women entrepreneurs and two women doing things in the city. And I've been grateful to her ever since. So that was kind of a fancy welcome.
Yeah, she's actually a board member now.
She's moving up, that girl.
Yeah, she's
so
on our board. Yeah.
Doing such good things. We'll get a conversation with her here soon.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a fancy intro for Trace Indy, but what do you do? Tell us in your words, what are you doing?
I do a little bit of everything, but my day job, my 9 to 5 is I'm the executive director of Growing Places Indy. It's a local nonprofit here in Indianapolis. We have 4 urban farms that we operate. We grow food for local food pantries. We also host one of the largest winter markets in the state every year for 6 months from November through April. That's where most people kind of are introduced to us is through the market. But Growing Places, actually the market actually started before Growing Places.
Okay.
So that's mostly how most of people know about that. But for the most part, I am really just learning how to navigate in this nonprofit world. My background is actually in marketing and PR. I used to work for a very large advertising agency, a couple of them actually, and I worked for McDonald's. McDonald's was my client for over 5 years. So I lived in Philadelphia. I managed accounts in New Orleans and a lot of other places, Chicago, and mostly here in Indianapolis, where I did marketing campaigns and PR campaigns for McDonald's. So if you've seen, like, for instance, if you ever saw like McDonald's sponsor the mini marathon a few years ago, I did that entire activation and sponsorship. Also in the 11, the Pacers, the Colts, the Big Mac, all of that stuff was something that I worked on and actually was a part of years, not really years ago, just 2 years ago, I quit my job. I found Growing Places on Instagram. They had a farming program that I really wanted to go through because I had really no concept of how food was grown. I grew up in a neighborhood that didn't have a grocery store. Actually, the grocery store that we did have in the neighborhood was a 7-Eleven, which now is a fancy restaurant, but I digress. So I went through the program with Growing Places, and the founders, Laura and Tyler, were just amazing people, and they really pretty much was like, you should quit your job. So I was like, okay. And I was like, I really should. And I hated doing the work. I just didn't have a strong connection to the brand anymore. I didn't align with their values. And I just learned a lot about how strong the marketing is when it comes to big food and how they really pour a lot of resources into poor communities and really they just consume the consumer with a lot of marketing where they feel like they don't have any other choices but this choice, which is not necessarily true. So after I went through the program, I went through another program at Purdue Extension to learn more about farming and how that all operates, became just ingrained in how Growing Places does business, and just pretty much they couldn't get rid of me. And I just was always around volunteering, learning. And then, I became really close to the last executive director, Linda Cook. And when she stepped down, I was like, you know what? I really want to challenge. I turned 35 and I was like, you know what? I want something that's really going to challenge me. I never worked in nonprofit. I had never had any idea how it even works. Besides, when I worked for McDonald's, we would grant a lot of money through the Ronald McDonald House to nonprofits. But as far as that, I always had a big budget. I never really had to worry about raising money and things like that. I'm a relationship builder, so that wasn't hard, but like the aspects of like really working on a very small budget.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, we have plenty of money. That's, we could do a marketing campaign with 30,000. That's 30,000 was probably a budget that I worked with that was extremely small for me in my ad agency days. But I decided I wanted to apply for the job, and I was like, you know what? I'll do it. I'll see what happens. And I was so nervous because I just was like, I have no idea anything about nonprofit. Like, I don't know, like this whole, like, I just thought it was a whole different world. And I just didn't know if I would be able to fit into what that looked like. And so I applied, and the board offered me the position. So I started in January, right when the pandemic was happening.
But I think that is a huge testament to women specifically, is we feel that we need to fit a mold of what we think that a position looks like, right? And I love that you said, I'm going to get out of my box, and you bring this great perspective. I mean, I work a lot with early education, and I wanted to open a school and do all these things, and I didn't have that tenure of, early education, just like you didn't have that tenure of, farming, but coming into something, and this is for every woman, your perspective is amazing, and bringing that outside vision, kind of, I wouldn't say blindly, but bringing that, all of that knowledge to an institution, I mean, makes you great. It's so good. I love that you're like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. Because I can curse on this, because this is
I like to curse too, but
well, I want to say, for those who haven't been or know much about Growing Places Indy, and some of you know that we are big believers in in growing your own food and teaching people how to grow and doing those things. And I've done a lot of conversations we built a hoop house in this pandemic that are usually behind me. And I will say, we went to a farm stand for Growing Places Indy when I think my son was 3. And I love it because you can pick at that specific one, you can pick your own. And my son once reached for a red pepper, and I was like, hey bud, that's really hot. And there was a gentleman behind the counter, and he said, no, let me cut that. Why don't you try it? It's really sweet. And it changed everything for my son. One, I didn't tell him to try something. This person that he didn't know behind gave him a fresh vegetable that he could see and tactile touch and, taste. And he goes, Mommy, I like this. And I go, I'll buy all of them. And I think I bought every sweet pepper that you guys had that time. And ever since then, now we grow our own food, in the summer and vegetables, and he has his own pepper and his own broccoli and his own everything. And he goes out there and he plops it and he eats it like an apple. And I would love to say that was me, but I really do give almost, not all, I'm going to give you 80% to Growing Places. I mean, it changed the way that my son ate, and we do try to be healthy, but having that relationship with the community where you can try things and see things and pick things. That changed, everything for the way that my son eats. And I give a lot of that credit to Growing Places. So I personally think you guys do amazing, amazing work across the city.
That was Phil, our farmer. He's no longer with us, but he's amazing. And that's really the goal of Growing Places, just to really expose people, right, to other things and food that's actually grown locally here in the city, and that you actually can grow a lot of food in an urban setting. A lot of people don't realize that. And so research shows if you introduce, different foods, especially fruits and vegetables at an early age, then they're going to tend to keep those same habits as they get older.
It's so good. Tell us a little bit more about because you have 4 urban farms. And again, I think the work you do is so important. And so you're doing urban farms. So tell us where they are, and then tell us a little bit about where, seasonally, where people can where can other people find you?
Yeah. So we have 4 urban lots. So our main urban lot is at the Bonner Center, which is on Tech's campus. That's where we have our farm stand in the summertime. So that's actually going on today. Every
Thursday.
Yeah, every Thursday from 4 to 6:30. It's actually going to be ending the end of October. We usually end it in September. But since we've had a lot of extra produce, and then it's been just a really good response with people really wanting to shop local during the pandemic, we've kept it open longer so people can make sure we have access to that. So we have our main lot. We have 2 greenhouses on that farm lot as well. Then we have a lot at the White River State Park on the canal. And then we have 2 urban lots in the Cottage Home area. So like off of Michigan and Oriental, there's a flower lot. And that actually is going to kind of turn into something we're doing in the future, but we're really trying to educate and train the next generation of urban farmers. So we have a young woman who's actually taking care of that lot, and she turned it into a flower lot, and she's actually about to start her own flower business. So that's kind of where we want to go in the future, is really use Growing Places as an educational space, because we have 2 greenhouses, we have the community center, and we're really set up for education. We already do programming already for kids and for adults. We have family nutrition classes that we're hoping to relaunch next summer. But we really want to make sure that we can show that you can actually have a sustainable business as a farmer, even if it's not growing your food all together and selling it, but even if it's a food business. You know, looks like she has her flower business. It could be a number of things in the farming space that people don't realize they can actually do. So with COVID happening, you know, it kind of shifted a lot of the things that we were working on, just because we're in a pandemic. But it's been great because it's really exposed a lot of people to Growing Places, our CSA program that we have every summer, where it's actually, no one knows what that means. It's a community share agriculture. So it's pretty much like a subscription box for produce. You pay up front, and then you can come to the farm every week and pick up your share of produce. And it really helps us get an influx of money so we can be able to continue to grow food throughout the season. And so we also have a farm stand at the Indigo Farm Transit Center downtown in partnership with Indigo. And that's how I actually met Lauren as well. But we actually have a farm stand there every Wednesday. It's actually closed now. But again, it allows for people to be able to have access if they normally don't have a grocery store. We know that most people who take public transportation here most likely don't have access to a grocery store in their neighborhood, but if they're at the transit center, they can stop by and grab very affordable produce. And this year we provided 50% off for SNAP recipients. So if you're on SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, you get 50% off all of our produce that we grow, our CSA program, and also at the farmers market, which launches next month in a few weeks. I can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
The first weekend of November, and then we go all the way through the end of April from 9 to 12:30 at the Circle City Industrial Complex. And so if you have if you're on SNAP, you can come to the welcome desk. You can swipe $20 on your card, and we'll give you an additional $40 to shop with. So you end up getting $60 total by swiping 20. So we know that this program is actually going to be even more important because there's been a huge increase in SNAP usage during COVID.
Yeah.
And so we're excited about being able to provide this program. It's unique to our market. No other farmers market actually does this. So I'm really proud of this program, and we received funding this year to be able to keep it throughout the entire season. So it's really exciting. But people can find us on our website, growingplacesindy.org. We have volunteer opportunities for the market. We also want to be growing this year through the winter. We typically don't grow a lot in the wintertime, but we have 2 new farmers. 2 women that I'm really proud that we have an entirely new team since I took over, which I'm really proud. You know, one of our farmers is a Black woman, which I'm extremely proud to be able to see, because a lot of people don't see that often. And also I'm the first, Black leader of the organization. So I think, as a Black woman in this space, I just feel like the work that I'm doing is really, really important. So people can learn more about us on our website, and there's everything you need to know about Growing Places is there.
And we'll link to all of it. We'll link to everything. We'll link to everything in the Insta. You're so good at just transitioning. I don't really have to ask many questions. Let's talk about, because we know how you kind of got to this position, and it is awesome. And again, women, apply for things even if it's not in your wheelhouse, because you will bring so much knowledge and value. That's your tip for today. So what has been delightful for you? It's one of my favorite questions to ask. What has been your delight? And not just, pandemic, and it could be pandemic. Is it hiring, a Black woman farmer. Like, that's so rad. And is it just bringing food? Like, what is it? What is that delight for you? And you can't use that one actually, because you just used that one. So what is your delight?
My delights.
Where do
It's
you
very
find
delightful to get emails like, we want to give you money. So I love that.
the best?
You know, I think it's really been delightful for me during this pandemic is to be able to provide jobs. We've not only have 2 farm managers that are full time, but we also been able to hire a few contractors during this time with people that haven't been able to work, who's lost their jobs. So that's been really great, and also just be able to still be able to keep these people in their position during the pandemic, because to be honest, I didn't think that would be possible come, you know, in March. I was like, what are we going to do? You know,
Yeah.
a lot of the things that we had planned, you know, didn't actually work out. However, my background in marketing and PR, and also, you know, I would say I'm pretty tech savvy, that also played well for me, because we had to transition a lot of things online, and the organization was not prepared for that. We didn't have anything hardly online besides our website that we did not build. Someone else built it for us, but I knew how to be able to go in there and make things happen. So that has been a delight for me, because I was feeling like I wasn't necessarily fit for the organization or fit for this position. But I am. So I just feel
Crushing
like,
it.
you know, like who else would have done this? You know, so that's been great. But, you know, it's been really delightful to see a lot more people, to be honest, take an interest in locally grown food, and really interested in supporting farmers, not just Black farmers, but farmers all over the city. The farmers market highlights a lot of local farmers, a lot of small family farms who do amazing work, who are amazing people that I've known, because I've worked with them for the last couple of years at the market. Before I became the executive director, I was running the market. So a lot of people, you know, it's hard work to grow food. And we don't often think about that when we're at the grocery store, because we have been taught that everything is at our fingertips. Literally, we can go into the grocery store and buy strawberries in December, you know, and you're like, that you don't have strawberries? Like, well, no, you know. So I think, you know, I think people are now really understanding, like, you know, like, I don't know. I think there's just a little bit more appreciation, and people are now
I
asking
agree.
questions, and people are now starting to understand that, oh, okay, I didn't know that. And I think that's, I guess, weird for me, but I think that's kind of delightful, because it makes my work a little bit easier. But yeah, you know, but there's been moments of joy and delight just spending extra time with family. Sometimes that can be not delightful, but, but you know, and this time it's been also really great, because normally I think I would have gotten together with my family anyway, but I think we've made more intentions to, like, come together, you know, and kind of appreciate these moments. So I think that's been really great.
I love that. Oh, that's so good. Okay, so you kind of alluded a little bit to, you know, volunteering and things like that. So what are some, you know, this is that opportunity you get to have that ask. And granted, we're going to link all the things so people can just follow along and understand more. You know, but how can the community show up for you?
I think before you can show up for us and me, it's really showing up for yourself. So really kind of educating. I was speaking recently on another panel about, like, really understanding, if you're really interested in this space and food justice, really understanding that it's really deeply rooted in racism and discrimination. And I think that you need to educate yourself about the food system itself. It's crazy. And if we're talking about this pandemic, I think it's really highlighted how fragile our food system is. And I think people are starting to understand, but I don't think people understand, like, how this really impacts us and how it impacts this planet, you know? And so I really want people to, like, really do their own work and research and see if they can make small changes and small habits. And if it's, you know, not coming to the farmer's market to buy all your groceries, just coming to buy a few, you know, or coming to volunteer. Like, coming to volunteer at Growing Places is really great, because, you know, our farmers take time with our volunteers. They really teach them if they really are interested in learning. how to grow food and how our whole process works. So, I think that volunteering with us is an amazing learning opportunity if you really want to continue to grow in this space. But showing up first is like really educating yourself, and then also just showing up. That's the hardest part too. It's just to show up. Um, Obviously, giving money is always great, but providing resources and networking, if there's someone that you think would benefit from this organization, or if there's a relationship that I should know, or you want to just have coffee, all of those things I think are great ways to show up.
I love that. Okay, this is the big question. Ba, ba, ba. How are you leaving your trace on Indy? What's this legacy, girl?
I know. I don't know. It's weird because I always hear this song from Beyonce. It's called I Was Here.
Yeah.
And she sings about leaving her legacy. And she wants the world to know that she was here.
Yeah.
So I always think about that. And I think that's one of my greatest fears, is to leave this earth and not do something great. And so I always think, like, what is that going to be? But, I think that part of my legacy is that I really want to show African Americans and people of color how important it is to know where your food comes from. If you can't feed yourself, this is a great quote from a woman that I admire, but she's like, if you can't feed yourself, you can never truly be free. So if you really don't understand, who feeds you controls you. So I feel like, I think it's so deeply rooted in our culture and just the systems that have been put in place before us, that I think it's really important for us to know that where our food comes from. I know that sounds super cliche, but I think that's really important. And I'm working on different programs, and I'm starting another business that really is going to focus on just that. Yeah. So, and as I'm in this role with Growing Places, I really want to leave my mark here by, developing programs that's going to stay beyond when I leave this role. So, and that's really important, is to really kind of educating that the whole farming system was really built on the backs of Black people. And I think it's really important for us to insert ourselves back into that space. I know there's a lot of harm that was done. But for me, I just think it's really important for us to tell those stories. And, I always say, it took us years to fight to get out of the field and get out of the kitchen. Now we're fighting to get back into it. So it's really hard to get in these, it's not cheap to get into these spaces. And I also want to, develop more Black farmers and more Black food entrepreneurs in this space, and who are successful, who can sustain themselves for years to come. So I guess my legacy is helping other people.
I feel like this is a theme with women that I admire, and through all of these coffee conversations so far, is that's literally how almost everyone is. How can I help and lift up others? And it's so amazing. And you're doing such good work. And I'm so incredibly grateful for your time this morning and having coffee with me and giving some education. And I'm going to link lots of resources as well. I'm just so thankful for you and for the work that you're doing. And it's just so, I get goosebumps with people like you. It's just so inspiring. So thank you so much for having coffee. And I can't wait for everyone to see this. Have a great rest of your day.